What if everything you've ever wanted is already yours? Not in the distant future, not someday, right now. The only thing keeping you from it is the belief that it isn't. Neville Goddard taught that imagination is not just a tool, it is the creative force of reality itself. What you assume to be true, what you accept as real in your mind, must harden into fact. Yet most people live as prisoners of their senses. They look at their circumstances and assume they are stuck. They chase success, love, and happiness, never realizing the truth. The outer world is only a reflection of the inner world. Reality does not happen to you. It responds to you. And the moment you assume your desire is already fulfilled, it begins to materialize. But how do you do this? How do you move from wishing to knowing, from hoping to having? The answer is simpler than you think. In the next hour, you will learn how to bypass the conscious mind, reprogram your subconscious, and step into the reality where your desire already exists. You will discover a method so powerful, so effortless, that once you apply it, your world must shift. This is not wishful thinking. This is not empty motivation. This is the law in action. You are the creator of your reality, and once you awaken to this truth, nothing will ever be the same again. Your subconscious mind is the hidden force shaping your entire life. It does not think. It does not reason. It simply accepts what you repeatedly impress upon it and manifests it into reality. It has no choice. It obeys the assumptions you hold as true. This is why imagination is everything. The moment you vividly experience something in your mind, your subconscious registers it as real. Studies in neuroscience confirm this. When you imagine an event with full sensory detail, your brain fires the same neurons as if it were happening in the physical world. The mind makes no distinction between what is imagined and what is seen with the eyes. Think about that. Every limitation, every struggle, every belief holding you back exists only because you have accepted it as real. You were not born doubting yourself. You were not born believing in scarcity or failure. These ideas were impressed upon you through repetition until they became subconscious programs running your life. But here's the truth. They can be rewritten. Neville Goddard taught that you must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not tomorrow. Not when circumstances change. Now. Because whatever you assume, your subconscious must reflect. When you persist in a state of abundance, love, or success, your subconscious moves the pieces of reality to match it. Events shift. People change. Opportunities appear. But it all begins with the one thing you can control, your inner world. Right now, ask yourself, what am I assuming to be true about my life? Is it serving me, or is it keeping me trapped? Because the moment you decide to change the assumption, your world must follow. The state akin to sleep, SATs, method, unlocking the subconscious. There is a moment, just before sleep, when the entire structure of your mind shifts. Your thoughts slow. The critical questioning part of your brain begins to fade. Your body relaxes, yet something in you remains awake, suspended between awareness and unconsciousness. This is the state akin to sleep, or SATs, as Neville Goddard called it. It is not just a fleeting sensation of drowsiness. It is the doorway to transformation, the most powerful moment to impress new beliefs onto your subconscious. Why is this state so important? Because your subconscious mind, which controls the unfolding of your life, does not analyze. It does not question. It only accepts what it is fed, and what it is fed most powerfully in SATs. The moment you enter this drowsy, receptive state, your subconscious is wide open, absorbing every image, every feeling, every assumption. Whatever you impress upon it in this state, whether deliberately or by default, must take root and must express itself in your reality. You have already experienced SATs countless times. Every night, just before you fall asleep, your mind naturally drifts into this state. Most people waste it. They replay the day's failures, relive past mistakes, or fall asleep worrying about tomorrow. They don't realize that in doing so, they are programming their subconscious to manifest more of the same. They are reinforcing the very circumstances they wish to escape. But what if, instead of drifting into sleep with thoughts of fear or doubt, you fell asleep in the feeling of your wish fulfilled? What if you took full control of this state and used it to implant a new reality? That is exactly what Neville Goddard taught. He discovered that SATs is the perfect bridge between the conscious and subconscious mind, a time when the resistance of the rational mind fades and new beliefs can take root effortlessly. Imagine someone who has struggled financially for years. Every night as they fall asleep, they replay thoughts of scarcity. They worry about bills, They feel the weight of financial stress, and night after night, they reinforce an identity of lack. Now imagine they decide to consciously change the script. Instead of drifting into sleep with thoughts of fear, they enter SATs and begin to assume they are already wealthy. They see themselves checking their bank account and feeling complete relief. They hear someone congratulating them on their financial success. They feel the confidence of knowing they have more than enough. At first it may feel unnatural. The old self will resist. But if they persist, something remarkable happens. Their subconscious begins to accept this new assumption as truth. It starts working behind the scenes, shifting reality to align with this new belief. Circumstances change. Opportunities appear. They make different decisions, meet different people, and suddenly, wealth becomes their new normal. This is the power of SATs. It bypasses doubt, removes resistance, and allows you to assume a new identity at the deepest level. It is not about forcing the external world to change. It is about shifting your internal state so completely that the outer world has no choice but to conform. The process is simple, yet life-changing. As you prepare for sleep, relax completely. Let go of tension. Allow yourself to drift into a calm, drowsy state. Now begin to construct a scene in your imagination, one that implies your desire is already fulfilled. If you wish to manifest love, imagine yourself holding the hand of your partner, feeling their warmth. If you desire career success, imagine receiving a phone call with the news you've been waiting for. Keep it short, keep it vivid, make it feel real. The key is not just to see the scene, but to feel it. Experience the joy, the gratitude, the excitement, as if it is happening now. Your subconscious responds to emotion, not empty words. If you can feel it deeply enough, if you can truly lose yourself in the scene, then it is done. Your subconscious has accepted it and the process of manifestation has begun. Some people wonder, what if I fall asleep before finishing the scene? That is perfect. In fact, it is the best outcome. If you fall asleep while immersed in the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled, then that assumption sinks directly into your subconscious, unchallenged. You will wake up the next morning subtly different. Your thoughts, your reactions, your expectations will begin to align with the new state you assumed the night before. Neville Goddard himself used this technique to transform his own life. In one of his most famous stories, he was stranded in Barbados with no money to return to the United States. Instead of accepting his situation, he entered SATs and imagined himself on a ship, sailing home. He felt the movement of the waves. He breathed in the salty air. He immersed himself so deeply in the assumption that it was already done that, within days, events shifted. A passage was arranged for him, and he returned home exactly as he had imagined. This is not magic. This is law. The subconscious does not question. It only accepts and manifests. When you deliberately use SATs, you are taking control of what your subconscious is accepting as reality. You are no longer a victim of unconscious programming. You are the creator. So tonight, as you lie in bed, pay attention. Do not drift into sleep with thoughts of lack, fear, or limitation. Choose your assumption. Feel it real. Let it take root. Because whatever you take into sleep, your subconscious will bring to life. The state akin to sleep is more than just a relaxation technique. It is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be, a doorway to the subconscious mind where new beliefs take root and shape your reality. When used correctly, it allows you to rewrite the script of your life, not by forcing external change, but by altering the very assumptions that dictate your experiences. Neville Goddard was clear. Your assumption creates your world, and the most effective time to implant a new assumption is in the moments before sleep, when the conscious mind fades and the subconscious becomes fully receptive. If you can enter this state deliberately and impress upon your subconscious the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you set in motion the forces that will manifest it in your waking life. But for SATs to work, it must be done correctly. It is not about mindlessly visualizing. It is not about wishful thinking. It is about fully embodying the state of your fulfilled desire until it becomes as real to you as your present reality. Step 1. Prepare your mind and body. Before you begin, find a quiet space where you will not be disturbed. This could be your bed, a comfortable chair, or any place where you can fully relax. Eliminate distractions, dim the lights, allow yourself to feel at ease, knowing that for the next few moments, your only focus is on shifting your state of being. Close your eyes and take slow, deep breaths. With each exhale, let go of tension. Feel your body sinking into relaxation. This is not meditation. You are not trying to empty your mind. You are simply transitioning into a state where imagination becomes more vivid than the outside world. As your body relaxes, your thoughts will begin to slow. You will notice that you are no longer fully awake, yet not completely asleep. This is the perfect state. It is in this space that your conscious resistance fades, and your subconscious opens like fertile soil, ready to accept whatever seed you plant. Step 2. Construct a scene that implies fulfillment. Now ask yourself, if my desire were already fulfilled, what would I experience? What would I see, hear, feel? Choose a simple yet powerful scene that implies your wish is already a reality. Keep it short, no longer than 5 to 10 seconds, but make it highly specific and emotionally charged. If your desire is financial success, do not imagine vague images of money. Instead, imagine yourself checking your bank account and seeing an abundant balance. See the numbers clearly. Feel the relief and excitement. Hear yourself saying, "It's done." If your desire is love, do not just picture yourself in a happy relationship. Imagine a specific moment, a hand in yours, a voice whispering, "I love you." Feel the warmth, the connection, the security of knowing you are cherished. If your goal is career success, do not just think about being successful. Imagine yourself in a specific situation that proves it, shaking hands with someone congratulating you, signing an important contract, holding an award in your hands. Make it real. This scene should be something that naturally happens after your wish has already come true. You are not imagining the process of getting there. You are imagining that you are already there. Step 3. Step into the scene as if it is happening now. Once you have chosen your scene, bring it to life. You are not watching it like a movie. You are inside it, experiencing it firsthand. See through your own eyes. Hear the sounds. Feel the emotions that would naturally arise if this were happening right now. The key is emotion. Your subconscious does not respond to empty images. It responds to feeling. If you can truly feel the joy, relief, excitement, or gratitude of your wish fulfilled, your subconscious will accept it as fact. Do not rush. Let the scene unfold naturally. Let it consume you until it becomes more real than your current reality. If doubt arises, gently bring yourself back to the scene. It is not about forcing belief. It is about immersing yourself in the experience until belief becomes effortless. Step 4. Repeat the scene in a loop until it feels natural. Now begin looping the scene over and over again in your mind. Each time, make it more vivid. Strengthen the details. Deepen the emotions. Let it sink in as your new reality. At some point, something remarkable will happen. The scene will stop feeling like imagination and start feeling like memory. You will no longer feel as if you are creating something. You will feel as if you are remembering something that has already happened. This is the moment your assumption is accepted by the subconscious. Step 5. Drift into sleep in the feeling of fulfillment. Continue looping the scene as you feel yourself drifting deeper into sleep. If you fall asleep while still immersed in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, your subconscious will take it as truth. This is the ideal outcome. Even if you do not fall asleep immediately, remain in the state for as long as possible. The longer you hold on to the assumption, the deeper it imprints onto your subconscious. The next morning, you may not notice an immediate change, but something will be different. Your thoughts, emotions, and reactions will subtly shift. You will find yourself expecting your desire rather than longing for it, and when expectation replaces longing, manifestation becomes inevitable. What if doubt creeps in? Doubt is natural, but it has no power unless you give it attention. If you wake up the next day and question whether it worked, remind yourself, it is already done. You may not see immediate evidence, but your subconscious is already working to bring your assumption into reality. Neville Goddard often said, "Dare to believe in the reality of your assumption, and watch the world play its part relative to its fulfillment." Your only job is to persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The how is not your concern. The when is not your concern. Your only concern is to remain faithful to the assumption. SATs is not just a technique. It is a practice of mastery over the subconscious. When done consistently, it reshapes your beliefs, your self-concept, and ultimately your entire life. Tonight, as you close your eyes, make a decision. Do not fall asleep in the old story. Choose a new one. Assume it is already yours, and let your subconscious do the rest. Because once it accepts the new assumption, reality has no choice but to conform. Many people hear Neville Goddard's teachings and assume they require blind faith. They believe imagination is just a mental escape, a pleasant fantasy with no real effect on the external world. But this is not wishful thinking. This is not magic. This is law. And modern science is now proving what Neville taught decades ago, that the mind is not just a passive observer of reality, but the very force that shapes it. To understand why SATs works, you must first understand how the brain processes imagination. Studies in neuroscience and psychology have confirmed that when you vividly imagine an event, your brain treats it as if it were actually happening. The same neural pathways are activated. The same chemical reactions take place. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between what is seen with the physical eyes and what is vividly experienced in imagination. Consider this experiment. In one study, researchers divided a group of basketball players into 3 teams. The first group physically practiced free throws. The second group did nothing. The third group only visualized themselves making successful shots without touching a basketball. At the end of the study, the players who had physically trained improved their performance by 24%, but the group that had only imagined themselves making shots, they improved by 23%, almost identical to those who practiced in real life. Let that sink in. Their brains had been rewired to perform better, without ever touching a ball. A similar study was conducted with pianists. One group physically played scales on a piano. Another group only visualized their hands moving across the keys. After several weeks, brain scans revealed that both groups developed the same neurological changes in the areas responsible for motor control. The mind had adapted as if the physical action had taken place. What does this mean for you? It means that when you enter SATs and vividly assume your wish fulfilled, your brain begins wiring itself to match that assumption. If you assume yourself wealthy, your brain strengthens the neural circuits of financial confidence and abundance. If you assume yourself loved, your nervous system adapts to expect connection and affection. This is not just mental exercise. This is biological transformation. But the science does not stop there. The subconscious mind, the silent creator. Your subconscious mind is far more powerful than you realize. It is responsible for regulating your heartbeat, controlling your immune system, and processing vast amounts of information without you even being aware of it. But more importantly, it governs your reality. Neville taught that the subconscious mind is like soil. Whatever seed is planted, whether positive or negative, must grow. The subconscious does not argue. It does not reason. It simply accepts what it is repeatedly given and brings it to fruition in the external world. This is why SATs is so effective. When you enter the drowsy state between wakefulness and sleep, you are bypassing the critical, analytical mind and speaking directly to the subconscious. You are planting a new seed, and once that seed takes root, it must manifest. A study in cognitive psychology found that repetitive mental imagery strengthens belief systems. If a person repeatedly envisions themselves as confident, their brain begins filtering reality through that assumption. Their body posture changes. Their tone of voice shifts. They naturally attract different experiences, not because of luck, but because their subconscious has accepted a new reality and is making adjustments accordingly. Now consider the implications. If a person falls asleep every night in the feeling of lack, fear, or doubt, their subconscious assumes this is reality and works tirelessly to maintain it. But if they consciously choose to fall asleep in the feeling of their wish fulfilled, seeing, hearing, and feeling their ideal reality, their subconscious must adapt to this new assumption. It is not a question of if. It is law, quantum physics, and the observer effect. Beyond neuroscience and psychology, even quantum physics supports Neville's teachings. Scientists have long been baffled by what is known as the observer effect, the idea that particles behave differently when they are being observed. Experiments have shown that light particles exist as a wave of infinite possibilities until they are observed. The moment they are measured, they collapse into a single, definite state. What does this tell us? That consciousness itself is shaping reality. Neville Goddard was ahead of his time when he said, "You are the operant power." He understood that your assumption is the observer that determines which version of reality materializes. The moment you assume something is real, whether in SATs or throughout your day, you are collapsing possibilities and bringing that assumption into form. If everything exists as potential, and your attention determines what manifests, then the only thing standing between you and your desire is your ability to assume it is already yours. Science confirms what Neville knew all along. SATs is not a superstition. It is a precise mechanism for reprogramming the subconscious mind and shifting the structure of reality itself. Neuroscience proves that imagination reshapes the brain. Psychology proves that repeated assumptions create new belief systems. Quantum physics proves that consciousness influences matter, but none of this knowledge matters if it is not applied. Neville did not teach people to simply believe in theory. He urged them to test it for themselves, to use SATs, to assume boldly, and to watch as the world bends to their new assumption. So ask yourself, are you using your imagination deliberately, or are you allowing old beliefs and unconscious fears to dictate your reality? Because the truth is, you are always manifesting. The only question is whether you are doing it consciously or unconsciously. SATs is your tool, your direct access to the subconscious. The scientific evidence is undeniable. Your mind is shaping your world, whether you realize it or not. So tonight, as you enter that drowsy state, remember this: you are the creator, and whatever you assume as real must become real. The power of the state akin to sleep is not theoretical. It is not an abstract idea or a vague hope reserved for the fortunate few. It is a universal law, one that has been tested, proven, and demonstrated in the lives of countless people who have dared to assume their desires were already fulfilled. When applied correctly, SATs leads to tangible, undeniable results, shaping reality in ways that seem almost miraculous to those who do not understand the workings of the subconscious mind. But this is not magic. This is not luck. This is the natural consequence of impressing an assumption onto the subconscious and allowing it to unfold in the external world. One of the most well-documented success stories comes from a woman who longed to reunite with her estranged brother. For years, she had tried to reconnect with him, but every attempt was met with silence. Letters went unanswered. Phone calls were ignored. She had begun to accept the painful idea that he no longer wanted her in his life. But after learning about SATs, she realized that as long as she continued assuming this story to be true, it would remain true. She decided to test Neville's teachings. Every night as she entered the drowsy state, she imagined a simple scene: her brother embracing her and saying, "It's so good to see you again." She felt his arms around her. She heard the warmth in his voice. She let the feeling of joy and reconciliation fill her entire body. She did this for several nights, never allowing herself to drift into sleep in the old assumption of rejection. Instead, she fell asleep, feeling as though the reunion had already happened. Then, the impossible happened. Out of nowhere, her brother called her. He apologized for the lost time and asked if they could meet. When they finally embraced, she heard him say the exact words she had imagined. The scene she had created in SATs had played out in reality, down to the smallest detail. Another remarkable story comes from a man who had struggled financially for years. No matter how hard he worked, he seemed unable to break free from the cycle of scarcity. Bills piled up. He constantly worried about money. He had resigned himself to the belief that financial security was out of reach. When he first heard about Neville's teachings, he was skeptical. How could simply imagining wealth change his financial situation? But after hearing the stories of others who had used SATs successfully, he decided to try it for himself. Every night, instead of worrying about his circumstances, he entered the drowsy state and imagined himself checking his bank account and seeing an abundant balance. He saw the numbers clearly. He felt the relief, the joy, the gratitude. He heard himself say, "I have more than enough." He did not allow himself to question how the money would come. He did not concern himself with logic. He simply assumed it was already done. Within weeks, his financial situation began to shift. An unexpected promotion, a long-forgotten investment suddenly paying off, a new opportunity presenting itself that he would have normally ignored, but this time, he acted on it. It was not that money had magically fallen into his lap. It was that his assumption had changed, and his subconscious mind had orchestrated events to match this new belief. The world had rearranged itself in response to the assumption he had persistently impressed upon his subconscious. The same principle applied to a woman who had been single for years. She longed for love but had unconsciously accepted the belief that she was destined to be alone. She saw others in relationships and felt as though love was something that always seemed just out of reach. Then she discovered Neville's teachings and realized that she had been unknowingly reinforcing the very state she wanted to escape. Every night before sleep, she entered SATs and imagined herself lying next to her ideal partner. She felt his warmth beside her. She heard him whisper, "I love you." She let herself sink into the experience, feeling completely cherished. completely fulfilled. At first it felt like fantasy, but she persisted. She refused to let doubt take root. She made it a nightly practice to assume the feeling of being deeply loved. And then, without forcing anything, her reality changed. A few months later, she met a man who matched her vision exactly. Their connection was immediate, effortless, undeniable. Unlike past relationships, where she had always felt uncertain or insecure, this relationship felt natural, inevitable. She had not desperately searched for love. She had not begged for it. She had simply assumed it was already hers, and reality conformed to that assumption. Neville himself experienced the power of SATs in his own life. In one of his most famous personal stories, he used this technique to manifest a trip back to the United States from Barbados, without a ticket, without money, with no logical way for it to happen. He was in Barbados and needed to return home, but he had no means to do so. Instead of accepting his circumstances as immovable, he applied SATs just as he had taught his students. Every night before sleep, he imagined himself aboard a ship, sailing home. He felt the movement of the waves beneath him. He smelled the salty air. He imagined himself lying in his cabin, completely relaxed, knowing he was on his way back. He persisted in this assumption until it felt real. Then, out of nowhere, a complete stranger, someone he barely knew, offered to purchase his passage. Without effort, without struggle, the opportunity fell into place exactly as he had imagined. He did not force circumstances to change. He did not plead for help. He simply assumed his wish was already fulfilled, and the world conspired to make it so. These stories prove an undeniable truth. The subconscious mind accepts whatever is impressed upon it. Reality does not resist a firmly held assumption. It does not argue. It simply reflects. The only difference between those who manifest their desires and those who remain stuck is their ability to persist. Some people try SATs for a few nights and give up if they do not see immediate results. But the truth is, every assumption must be maintained until it feels natural. The moment it becomes second nature, the moment it feels as real as any memory, it will materialize in the external world. Right now, ask yourself, what assumptions am I carrying into sleep each night? What scenes am I playing in my mind? Am I unconsciously reinforcing the reality I want to escape? Because whether you are aware of it or not, you are always using SATs. The only question is whether you are using it deliberately. If this has worked for so many others, why wouldn't it work for you? Reality is fluid, waiting to take the shape of your assumptions. Test it for yourself. Assume boldly. Enter SATs in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Persist in it until it becomes second nature, and then watch as your world bends to match your assumption, because it must. Everything in your life reflects your assumptions. If you assume struggle, struggle persists. If you assume success, doors open effortlessly. Neville Goddard taught that reality conforms to what you persistently feel is true. Most people react to circumstances, reinforcing the old story. But change happens when you assume the wish fulfilled and refuse to waver. Your only task is to feel it as real now and trust the subconscious to manifest it. No forcing, no chasing, just knowing. Assume boldly, persist unwaveringly, and let the world shift around you. Because once claimed in imagination, it is already yours.